Edinburgh Castle is often remembered as a monument of Scottish pride, but that is only the surface. Behind these walls lives a history of blood, betrayal, power, and silence that still feels disturbingly alive. Edinburgh Castle stands on a dark volcanic rock above Scotland's capital, watching the city like a silent witness to centuries of blood, ambition, prayer, treachery, and war. It may seem like a proud national monument, a beautiful fortress framed by the skyline of Edinburgh. But behind that impressive appearance lies a violent history soaked in the conflict and fear. The castle has been attacked, defended, rebuilt, and mythologized for centuries. Its story is not only about Scotland, it is about how geography shapes power, how rulers use symbols, how technology changes warfare, and how human beings react under pressure, danger, and hope. In many ways, the castle is a stone record of human nature itself. The story begins with science before it begins with kings. Castle Rock, the great crag on which the fortress stands, was formed by ancient volcanic activity millions of years ago. Later glacial movement shaped the surrounding landscape, leaving the rock steep and defensible on most sides. Long before people understood geology in scientific terms, they understood its practical value. High ground offered visibility, protection, and prestige. Early tribes recognized that this place was naturally suited for defense. Archaeological evidence suggests that people occupied the new site from very early times, probably during the Iron Age. This tells us something important about human behavior. People consistently seek security in uncertain environments, and geography often determines who survives and who rules. By the early medieval period, the site had become a fortified settlement linked by many historians to Din Éideann, an important stronghold in the kingdom of the Gododin. This early phase matters because it shows that Edinburgh Castle was not built suddenly as a royal dream. It evolved from older traditions of hilltop defense. Across the ancient world, from Greek acropolises to Near Eastern fortresses, communities placed power where nature provided advantage. This pattern appears again and again. The castle became one of those places. Its rise as a royal center accelerated under Malcolm III in the 11th century, and the site gained lasting spiritual prestige through Queen. Political control usually begins with control of terrain. Before philosophy, law, and bureaucracy can flourish, a society must secure a place from which authority can operate. Edinburgh, her memory transformed the fortress into more than a military post. It became a royal residence connected with holiness and legitimacy. Margaret's Chapel, still standing within the castle, remains the oldest surviving building in Edinburgh. That tiny structure carries enormous historical meaning. In medieval politics, rulers needed more than force. They needed divine approval, moral symbolism, sacred association. Religion strengthened monarchy by making political power appear part of a higher order. The chapel therefore represents not only faith, but strategy. Stone churches inside castles announced that authority was both armed and blessed. Yet the castle's history is far from peaceful. It was repeatedly pulled into the violent struggles that shaped Scotland's destiny. During the Wars of Scottish Independence, Edinburgh Castle became one of the most contested military positions in the kingdom. In 1296, Edward I of England captured it during his invasion of Scotland. Edward's campaign shows how siege warfare depended on more than courage. It relied on logistics, engineering, persistence, and resources. Popular stories often celebrate dramatic charges and heroic duels, but strongholds usually fall because one side controls supply, artillery, and time. In this sense, medieval war was an early form of applied science. Attackers measured walls, planned angles, cut provisions, and used mechanical and physical force to break resistance. One of the most famous moments in the castle's story came in 1314, when a force led by Thomas Randolph, nephew of Robert the Bruce, retook the fortress in a daring night assault. According to tradition, Randolph's men climbed a steep path up the rock that defenders thought impossible to use. Whether every detail is exact or not, the episode reveals the greatest weakness often lies in what people believe cannot happen. Complacency creates vulnerability. In military history, surprising victories frequently occur when imagination defeats routine. After the recapture, Robert the Bruce ordered parts of the castle destroyed so the English could not easily use it again. That decision was brutal, but rational. Strategy sometimes demands sacrificing what one loves in order to prevent greater loss. Over time, the castle returned to royal importance, but it remained bound to violence and suspicion. One of the most chilling stories associated with it is the Black Dinner of 1440. The young Earl of Douglas and his brother were invited to dine with the big boy King James II. During the feast, a black bull's head, a symbol of death, was placed before them. The two boys were seized, subjected to a mock trial, and executed. Historians debate the exact details, but the event remains famous because it captures the cold theatricality of political power. Violence is often staged. Executions and betrayals do more than remove rivals. They send warnings. Public fear becomes a political instrument. Edinburgh Castle was not just a refuge of kings, it was also a stage on which terror could be performed. Another major chapter opened in the age of Mary, Queen of Scots. In 1566, her son James VI was born in Edinburgh Castle, an event of immense political significance. His birth promised continuity in a kingdom deeply divided by religion and faction. Mary's life, however, was one of the great tragedies of European monarchy. Crowned in infancy, pushed by competing interests, trapped by scandal and political calculation, she eventually lost her throne and her freedom. Her connection to Edinburgh Castle illustrates a larger philosophical problem about rulers. Are monarchs individuals with personal hopes, loves, and fears? Or are they living symbols whose private lives must be sacrificed to the public expectation? In unstable times, rulers are rarely allowed to be merely human. Castles protect them physically while imprisoning them politically. The violence of Mary's era reached a new level during the Lang Siege from 1571 to 1573. Supporters of Mary held the castle against forces loyal to the young James VI. Heavy artillery pounded the fortress, destroying important structures including David's Tower. This siege clearly demonstrates the technological transition from medieval to early modern warfare. Gunpowder weapons transformed fortification design and military planning throughout Europe. Advances in metal casting, chemistry, and ballistics made old walls increasingly vulnerable. The castle had once depended mainly on height and thick stone. Now, it had to face an age in which mathematics, engineering, and explosive force could tear such defenses apart. Technology changed the battlefield, but not the suffering. Civilians, soldiers, and laborers still endured hunger, terror, injury, and exhaustion. The 17th century brought more conflict. During the Wars of the Three Kingdoms, Edinburgh Castle again became a strategic prize. In 1650, forces under Oliver Cromwell captured it after bombardment. This repeated pattern of siege teaches an important historical truth. No fortress remains invincible forever. Every defensive system is temporary because every system eventually meets new tactics, new weapons, or new circumstances. Philosophers from Heraclitus onward have emphasized the instability of human arrangements. What seems permanent often survives only by constant adaptation. Edinburgh Castle endured because it changed roles over time. It served as fortress, palace, treasury, barracks, prison, and national monument. Survival did not mean standing unchanged, it meant being repeatedly redefined. Its function as a prison reveals another side of its bloody reputation. Over the centuries, Edinburgh Castle held many prisoners, including political detainees, privateers, pirates, French captives, and even American prisoners of war. Prison life inside a fortress strips history down to raw. Under confinement, people create routines, social hierarchies, jokes, trade networks, and acts of rebellion. Modern psychology helps explain such patterns. In stressful environments, humans seek the meaning, predictability, and identity. Even in chains, they build miniature societies. Historical records from prison sites across the world show similar responses: boredom, rumor, solidarity, conflict, and small acts of resistance. Edinburgh Castle belongs to that larger story. Its walls did not merely keep enemies out, they also kept desperate people in. The castle also protected objects of extraordinary symbolic importance, including the honours of Scotland, the ancient crown jewels. These treasures mattered because humans fight not only for land or wealth, but for legitimacy and identity. A crown is physically just crafted metal and decoration, yet politically it can carry the emotional weight of a nation. Social psychology explains this through group identity. People invest objects, places, and rituals with shared meaning, and then defend them as if defending themselves. Edinburgh Castle became powerful partly because it housed such concentrated symbols of Scottish continuity. In times of danger, preserving the castle could feel like preserving the nation's memory. Science and technology continued to shape the site in later centuries. Improvements in artillery demanded stronger batteries and revised defenses. Military engineers increasingly relied on geometry, observation, and precision. This reflected one of the great changes in world history, the rise of systematic knowledge. From ancient mechanics to the scientific revolution, humans gradually learned to explain and manipulate the physical world with greater accuracy. Yet Edinburgh Castle reminds us that science itself is neither compassionate nor cruel. Knowledge can serve many ends. The same principles that improve architecture, navigation, and construction can also improve bombardment, imprisonment, and surveillance. Human values determine how discovery is used. A striking example of the castle's link to modern science is the 1 o'clock gun, first fired in the 19th century to help ships in the Firth of Forth set their marine chronometers. This daily signal connects the fortress to astronomy, navigation, and the science of precise timekeeping. Accurate time was essential for determining longitude at sea, which in turn shaped global trade, naval power, and here the castle's identity shifted again. A place once defined by medieval slaughter became part of the infrastructure of modern measurement. History often works in layers, then replacements. Old symbols remain while new functions are added. The castle also survives in legend. Tales of a ghostly piper, a headless drummer, and wandering spirits have become part of its image. Whether supernatural claims are true is less important than why they persist. Anthropology and psychology suggest that haunted stories often grow around the places marked by trauma, uncertainty, and repeated death. Ghost narratives are forms of memory. They allow communities to express what official records may flatten or ignore. In Edinburgh Castle's ghosts are cultural echoes of siege, execution, confinement, and fear. Today, the fortress is preserved through archaeology, conservation science, and historical interpretation. Experts must study weathering, erosion, structural stress, and the chemistry of stone decay. Preserving such a monument raises philosophical questions about authenticity. How much restoration is too much? At what point does repair become reinvention? These questions matter because heritage is not only about the past, it is about what the present chooses to remember. Edinburgh Castle survives because generation after generation decided it was worth saving. Real-life stories from the castle's long past make these themes more concrete. During prolonged sieges, daily life became a struggle of arithmetic and endurance. Defenders had to calculate grain, water, fuel, and morale with grim precision. Horses might be slaughtered for meat, bread rationed into tiny portions, and sleep interrupted by repairs under torchlight. Such situations resemble later historical case studies from fortified cities around the world. Whether in ancient strongholds, early modern towns, or modern wartime blockades, starvation often breaks resistance faster than direct attack. This reveals a hard truth about human behavior. Bodies set limits that ideology cannot easily overcome. Brave speeches do not erase hunger, yet people also show remarkable resilience. Communities under siege often become inventive, cooperative, and disciplined, proving that hardship can destroy social order or strengthen it depending on leadership, trust, and shared purpose. There is also a lesson in how visitors respond to the castle today. People are drawn to places marked by danger because they offer controlled contact with mortality. A battlefield, prison, or execution site allows modern observers to think about death and power from a safe distance. Existential philosophy helps explain this attraction. Thinkers such as Kierkegaard, Heidegger, and Camus argued that confronting mortality can sharpen awareness of meaning, choice, and responsibility. Edinburgh Castle therefore functions not only as a museum of events, but as a mirror. People enter searching for kings, canons, and legends, yet they can often leave thinking about fear, ambition, memory, and survival in their own lives. That may be the deepest reason the fortress endures in imagination. It does not merely display history. It makes human beings reflect on what history is made of, decisions under pressure, values tested by violence, and the constant attempt to build significance in a world where nothing, not even stone, lasts forever. The castle also teaches humility. Empires passed, weapons changed, dynasties collapsed, and beliefs shifted, yet each generation thought its own order would endure. Studying Edinburgh Castle corrects that illusion. It shows that power is temporary, memory is selective, and survival belongs not to the proudest, but to those able to adapt without forgetting what was paid before. In the end, The bloody history of Edinburgh Castle is more than a tale of Scottish warfare. It is a concentrated study of humanity. It shows how landscapes create opportunities for power, how rulers seek legitimacy through religion and ritual. If this dark journey through history pulled you in, don't stop here. Subscribe, like, share, and comment for more. For more mysterious and chilling stories, visit our profile and step deeper into the shadows.